Hi, I'm Quinn, 29, and on the morning of my wedding day, my mom texted me 5 words that I'll never forget. Don't expect anyone to show. At first I thought she was joking, until I saw what she'd really done. That single text changed how I saw my family forever. Where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories about family betrayal, emotional courage, and finding your own peace. I still remember the smell of coffee drifting through the tiny kitchen that morning. The same scent that usually calmed me. But that day, even the familiar warmth felt strange. My wedding dress hung near the window, catching bits of soft sunlight, and for a few blissful minutes, I forgot all the noise in my head. I was marrying Tom, the kindest man I'd ever known. It should have been the happiest day of my life. Then my phone buzzed. It was my mom. 5 words. That's all it took to turn that warm, peaceful morning into something I'll never forget. Don't expect anyone to show. At first I laughed. A nervous, shaky kind of laugh that didn't sound like me. She must have meant something else, I told myself. Maybe she was teasing me, or maybe she meant they'd be late. I waited for a second message. Something like, "Just kidding, we're on our way." But the screen stayed blank. My heart started pounding, not fast like excitement, but heavy like dread. I read the message again and again, hoping I'd misread it. But no matter how many times I blinked, the words didn't change. My mom had really said that. On my wedding day. For a few seconds I just stood there, phone in hand, the sound of the coffee machine humming behind me. My makeup artist, a sweet woman named Robin, noticed something was off. "You okay, hon?" she asked softly, her brush pausing midair. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just nerves." But my voice cracked at the end, and I knew she didn't believe me. Inside, my mind was spinning. Maybe they were still coming. Maybe Mom was just mad about something stupid. It wouldn't be the first time. She had a way of turning every special day into something about her. Birthdays, graduations, holidays, it always ended with someone apologizing just to keep the peace. Growing up, I learned that peace in our house was just another word for silence. When I was 16, I brought home a trophy from a state writing competition. I remember standing there beaming, waiting for her reaction. She didn't even look up from her phone. "Writing won't pay bills, Quinn," she'd said flatly. "You should focus on something useful." That same chill ran through me now, as if 16-year-old me was standing beside the bride I'd become, still waiting for approval that would never come. Tom knocked gently on the door, his voice warm. "Hey, you ready for breakfast, sweetheart?" I shoved my phone face down on the counter. "Almost," I said, trying to sound cheerful. He stepped inside, smiling when he saw me half-dressed, hair pinned in curlers. "You look beautiful already." I wanted to tell him about the text, but I couldn't. Not yet. I didn't want to ruin his morning too. Instead, I reached for his hand and said, "Thank you. I'm really glad it's you." He kissed my forehead, said something about grabbing donuts for the bridesmaids, and left. The moment the door closed, I felt my throat tighten. I picked up my phone again, still no follow-up message. By 9 a.m., the girls started arriving, laughing, carrying coffee cups and makeup bags. The energy should have been light and happy, but I felt this thick unease underneath everything. Jenna, my best friend since high school, noticed it right away. "You good, Q?" she asked, plopping onto the couch. "Yeah," I said too quickly. "Just tired." Jenna raised an eyebrow. "You're a terrible liar." I hesitated, then handed her the phone. She read the message and frowned. "Oh, Quinn." She looked up. "She didn't." "She did." My voice came out small. "And she meant it." Jenna sighed. "She's always been like this. Remember your graduation? Same thing. She left early and said she had a headache." I nodded, remembering how I'd stood on that stage, scanning the audience, only to realize my mom's seat was empty. "She'll come," Jenna said finally, squeezing my hand. Even she wouldn't miss this. I wanted to believe that. God, I wanted to. An hour later I got another text, but this time from my brother, Ryan. "Hey, sorry, Mom's not feeling great. Might not make it. I'll keep you posted." It was polite, detached. Just enough words to sound like effort, but not enough to mean anything. My chest tightened. Might not make it. It wasn't the flu. It wasn't a snowstorm. It was my wedding. I typed back, "Tell her I understand," even though I didn't. Then I turned my phone off completely. I couldn't take the constant hope and crash cycle anymore. Robin started curling my hair, humming softly. The sound reminded me of being little again. Back when Mom used to hum while braiding my hair before school. There was a time when she was gentle, when her love didn't feel conditional. But somewhere along the way, I think her love turned into control. When I started dating Ethan, my ex, she adored him. Said he was charming, mature, from a good family. When I told her he cheated, she didn't believe me. Said I was being dramatic. When I left him, she said I was throwing away something stable. And when I met Tom, a kind man who fixed cars for a living and liked country music, she said, "You can do better." Those words haunted me now as I stared at my reflection. Maybe she wasn't coming because to her, Tom wasn't good enough. Maybe in her eyes I wasn't either. Around noon, the house grew busier. Flowers arrived, photographers moved in and out, and the soft chaos of a wedding morning filled every corner. But my heart stayed heavy. Every time someone laughed, I felt a pang of guilt for not feeling the same. Then came a knock on the door. "Delivery for the bride," someone called. I turned to see a florist holding a small white box. "For me?" I asked. He nodded. "From someone named Haley." My stomach dropped. Haley was my cousin, the one I'd been closest to growing up, until she started echoing every cruel thing my mother said about Tom. We hadn't spoken in months. Inside the box was a single white rose and a note. "Sorry I can't make it. Hope it's everything you wanted. H." The flower looked perfect, untouched, like a peace offering that came with a sting. I set it aside and whispered, "It's fine. It's all fine." But my voice trembled so badly that Jenna came over and hugged me. At one point, the photographer asked me to pose by the window. "Pretend you're looking out, waiting for someone," he said. I almost laughed. "That won't be hard," I muttered. As I stood there, sunlight spilling across the floor, I thought about all the times I tried to make things right with my mom. The phone calls that ended in silence. The messages she left unanswered. The holidays where she'd say, "We'll see," and never show. I used to think if I could just be better, smarter, calmer, more understanding, she'd come around. But that morning, staring out that window, I realized something I never had before. She didn't want a daughter. She wanted control. By the time the clock hit 1, everything was ready. My hair was done, makeup perfect, dress zipped up tight. Everyone was excited. Everyone but me. I stepped into the bathroom to take a breath. My hands trembled as I turned my phone back on, almost afraid of what I might see. Dozens of notifications popped up, messages from friends, well wishes from coworkers, and nothing from my mom. Just that one text. Sitting there like a bruise on the screen. I stared at it until the letters blurred. My chest ached so much it was hard to breathe. I wanted to scream, to cry, to delete it, but I couldn't. Because deep down, I knew this was the last time she'd ever really say what she felt. And it wasn't love. I heard Jenna's voice through the door. "Quinn, time to go." I wiped my eyes, fixed my veil, and forced a smile into the mirror. "Coming," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I picked up my bouquet, glanced once more at the phone and whispered, "You were right, Mom. I shouldn't expect anyone to show." Then I turned it face down, left it on the counter and walked out. The air outside felt cooler, lighter. I didn't know it then, but those 5 words weren't just a warning. They were a beginning. Because sometimes the moment your heart breaks is the same moment you finally start to heal. The air outside the bridal suite hit me like a quiet wave, cool, still, almost too calm. The sound of laughter and soft chatter from guests drifted through the open windows of the chapel, but it all felt far away. My heels clicked softly against the pavement as I made my way toward the entrance, bouquet trembling just slightly in my hands. I tried to focus on the details that used to make me happy. The scent of the lilac centerpieces, the lace trimming on my veil, the way the sunlight hit the stained glass windows, but everything seemed muted, as if someone had turned the world's volume down. Tom stood near the altar, smiling, talking with his best man. He looked so grounded, so at ease, that for a second guilt washed over me. He didn't deserve my heartbreak shadowing our wedding day. So I pulled in a breath, straightened my shoulders, and whispered to myself, "You can do this. Just walk down the aisle." The wedding planner gave a small nod. "Ready, Quinn?" "As I'll ever be," I managed to say. The doors to the chapel opened, and the music began. A soft instrumental version of "Here Comes the Bride." Every guest stood, turning toward me. A few cameras flashed. My throat tightened. It was beautiful. Really it was. The wooden pews were decorated with white ribbons, the candles flickered gently, and the smell of roses floated through the air. It should have been perfect. But my eyes went straight to the front rows, where my family should have been. Empty seats. 4 of them. Right there, draped with reserved for the bride's family signs that might as well have been tombstones. For a second I froze. My steps faltered. I felt Jenna's hand brush my shoulder from behind, a tiny nudge to keep moving. I forced myself forward, one step at a time, pretending not to notice the absence that screamed louder than the organ. The guests shifted, some whispering, some smiling politely. They didn't know, of course. To them, maybe my family was just late. Or maybe they thought I wanted it this way. A simple ceremony, intimate and quiet. But I knew better. I knew what it looked like when love decided to stay home. Halfway down the aisle, my vision blurred. I blinked rapidly, forcing the tears back. I didn't want to cry in front of them. Not today. Not because of her. So I looked straight at Tom. He smiled, warm, steady, the kind of smile that could hold a storm together. That one look grounded me. My steps grew more certain, and by the time I reached him, my breathing had evened out. When he took my hand, his thumb brushed against my wrist, sensing the faint tremble. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded quickly. "Yeah," I lied. "Just nerves." The minister began speaking, his voice deep and calm, echoing softly through the room. But I barely heard a word. I kept glancing toward those empty chairs, like a child still hoping her parents would show up late with some grand excuse. A soft cough came from the second row. A sound that pulled my attention toward Tom's mother. She gave me a warm, encouraging smile. Her eyes were kind, almost motherly. The sort of look I had wished for all morning. In that brief second, I realized something simple and painful. She was more of a mother to me in her silence than mine had ever been in her words. I tried to focus on the ceremony again. The pastor spoke about love, about how it's patient, forgiving, unshaken by storms. My chest tightened at that last part. Unshaken by storms. If he only knew what kind of storm I'd walked through to get here. The vows began. Tom went first, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "I knew from the moment we met that you'd change my life," he said, glancing up at me. "You make every ordinary day feel like home. And no matter what happens, I'll never stop choosing you." Everyone smiled. There were quiet sighs, soft laughter, a few people wiping tears. Then it was my turn. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. The silence stretched. My heart thudded painfully against my ribs. For a second I thought I might faint. Tom gave my hand a light squeeze. "Take your time," he whispered. I inhaled shakily. I didn't think I'd be standing here today. I began, my voice breaking on the first word. Not because I didn't want this, but because sometimes the people who are supposed to stand beside you just don't. A murmur rippled through the room. I paused, swallowed hard, and kept going. But then you came along, and you showed me that love doesn't have to hurt. That it can be quiet and steady and real. As I spoke, I could feel the ache in my chest slowly ease. Saying it out loud, acknowledging that absence, made it hurt less. I finished my vows with a shaky smile, whispering, "And I promise, I'll always be where you are." Tom's eyes glistened. He mouthed, "I love you." And for the first time that day, I believed I might be okay. The ceremony continued. Rings exchanged. Prayers said. The words, "You may kiss the bride," echoed softly, followed by applause. For a brief moment, everything else disappeared. It was just us. The world went quiet, and I felt something shift. Like the part of me that had always chased love had finally stopped running. We turned toward the guests, walking down the aisle as husband and wife. People clapped, cheered, threw petals. The organ played a joyful tune. But behind every cheerful sound, I heard the emptiness of those front row seats. The moment we stepped outside, the bright sunlight hit us full in the face. The photographer shouted directions. "Hold hands. Look at each other. Laugh." We obeyed, smiling on cue, but I could feel the tightness in my cheeks. My smile didn't quite reach my eyes. While everyone mingled on the church lawn, Jenna pulled me aside. "Hey," she said softly. "I know you're putting on a brave face, but you don't have to." I blinked back, tears. "I just don't want to ruin the day." She shook her head. You're not ruining anything. You're allowed to feel hurt. Her kindness broke through my composure. A tear escaped before I could stop it. I just don't get it, Jen, I whispered. Why go out of her way to say that? She could have just stayed silent. But no, she had to send a text that would sit in my chest all day. Jenna exhaled, shaking her head. Because control is her language, Quinn. She needs you to feel small so she can feel big. Her words hit like truth always does, quiet but sharp. I nodded, wiping my face. I'm tired of giving her that power. Then stop, Jenna said simply. Let today be yours. The reception hall smelled like vanilla cake and champagne. People laughed, music played, and for a while I managed to get lost in it all. Tom twirled me on the dance floor, his smile soft and real. He leaned close and whispered, "You did amazing today." I laughed quietly. "You think so?" "I know so," he said. "You carried yourself like someone who doesn't break." But I did break, just not in front of everyone. Later, during the toasts, Tom's best man shared stories that made everyone laugh. When it was my turn to speak, I glanced at the empty family table again. The candles there had burned halfway down, flickering in the gentle draft. I raised my glass. "To everyone who showed up," I said simply. "And to love that doesn't keep score." The guests clapped. Tom smiled proudly. And for a brief second, I felt peace settle over me. But peace never lasts long when ghosts linger. Just as we were getting ready for photos, my phone buzzed again. I hesitated before checking it. It was from Aunt Linda, one of the few relatives I still thought might care. Her message was short. "Wish we could have been there. Hope you understand." I frowned. "Wish we could have been there?" I typed back, "Everything okay?" No reply. A chill went through me. Something about the wording felt off, like she was hiding something. The photographer called out, "Family photo time." Tom's side gathered cheerfully. His parents, siblings, cousins, all laughing, pulling me into the middle. As flashes went off, I smiled for the camera, thinking how strange it was that I was now part of someone else's family photo. The one I'd been waiting for my whole life. After the photos, I slipped into a side hallway for a breather. My heels pinched, my throat dry. The laughter from the reception faded into muffled noise. I pulled out my phone again, hoping for something. An apology, maybe even silence. Anything but what I found. A new notification. Group photo from Haley. My breath caught. My hand shook as I opened the image. The screen filled with faces I knew better than my own. My mother, my brother, my cousins, all standing together. Smiling. Raising glasses. And behind them a banner that made my knees go weak. "Congratulations, Ethan and Claire." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. The world tilted. I leaned against the wall, the edges of the hallway spinning slightly. My heart pounded in my ears. I could hear the faint echo of laughter from the reception, distant and unreal. Ethan. My ex. The man who cheated on me. Claire, one of my old coworkers. And my family, my own family, had chosen to celebrate them instead of me. I stared at the photo again, unable to blink. My mom's face glowed with pride. Her arm was around Ethan's shoulder. She looked happy, happier than I'd ever seen her look at me. In that moment, the silence I'd felt in the aisle made sense. It wasn't absence. It was rejection. I didn't cry right away. The tears came later, quietly, when no one was watching. For now, I just stood there, gripping the phone, feeling the final piece of hope fall away. The air in the hallway grew cold, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be truly alone. And yet, somewhere inside that silence, a strange calm began to grow. 'Cause maybe this was it. Maybe this was the moment I stopped chasing them altogether. I slipped the phone into my purse, straightened my shoulders, and took one long, steady breath. Then I walked back toward the sound of music, toward the people who had shown up. And though my heart was still breaking, each step felt like the start of something new. Something stronger than the silence that had once defined me. The music from the reception grew louder as I walked back into the hall, but it felt like I was moving through water. Every sound was muffled, every light too bright. The phone in my purse might as well have been a burning coal. I could still feel its heat against my side. That photo seared into my mind. I forced a smile as I returned to the crowd. People clinked glasses, laughter rippled through the tables, and the photographer called for another round of couple shots. I nodded along, pretending to listen, pretending to exist. Inside, I was unraveling one heartbeat at a time. Tom caught sight of me and waved me over. His smile was warm, genuine. The kind of smile that had always made me feel safe, until now when safety itself felt like a memory. "There you are," he said, sliding his arm around my waist. "You okay? You disappeared for a bit." "I just needed a minute," I said, trying to steady my voice. "Everything's a lot." He chuckled softly. "Weddings usually are." If only he knew what kind of a lot I was carrying. The photographer called us up again. "One more by the cake, please. Bride and groom together." I smiled for the camera, the frosting knife cool in my hand, the lights flashing like fireworks. Every click of the shutter echoed that group photo I couldn't unsee. My family, my ex, and my mother's proud face. My stomach twisted. We cut the cake, fed each other small bites, people cheered. The noise was loud enough to drown out my thoughts for a while, but when the music started again and couples began to dance, the silence inside me came rushing back. I excused myself quietly, stepping outside into the evening air. The sky had turned dusky purple, streaked with pink and gold. The breeze tugged at the edge of my veil. I pulled out my phone again. I shouldn't have, but I did. I stared at that photo one more time, as if repetition might make it less real. But it didn't. Every face in that picture was someone I loved once. My brother Ethan laughing like nothing had ever gone wrong. My mother beaming with pride. And in the middle, Claire, wearing a dress that looked suspiciously like the one I'd once picked out for myself, back when I thought Ethan was my forever. My heart thudded painfully. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the realization that the people who'd once held my world together had built a new one without me. The phone buzzed again. A new message from Mom. "Don't make a scene. Be happy for them. It's time to move on." For a second I couldn't breathe. My fingers trembled around the screen. She didn't even try to hide it. No apology, no explanation, just a command. Like she still owned the right to decide how I should feel. The tears came hot and fast, no longer patient enough to wait. I pressed a hand against my mouth, trying to keep the sob from escaping. My mascara blurred. The evening air felt too thin. Then a voice came from behind me. "Quinn." I turned around. Tom stood in the doorway, his expression shifting from concern to confusion. "Hey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." For a moment I wanted to lie, to tell him it was nothing, just exhaustion, maybe the champagne. But the truth was clawing its way up my throat. I took a shaky breath. "It's my mom." He frowned. "What about her?" "She texted me earlier. Said not to expect anyone to come." My voice cracked on the word anyone. "And now she sent me this." I handed him the phone. He took it carefully, eyes narrowing as he looked at the screen. His jaw tightened. "They're at a party," he said slowly. "Wait, is that my ex?" I whispered. "And Claire. They're celebrating their engagement. My family's with them." For a moment silence stretched between us, heavy and cold. The only sound was the wind rustling the ribbons tied along the chapel rail. Tom exhaled slowly, lowering the phone. "Quinn, I don't even know what to say." "There's nothing to say," I murmured. "It just hurts." He reached out, brushing his thumb against my cheek to wipe away a tear. "You didn't deserve that. Any of it." Something in me broke then, not from the pain itself but from the kindness. Because kindness felt foreign, rare. I hadn't realized how much I'd been starving for it. I let out a soft, broken laugh. "Do you know the last time my mom hugged me? It was before she found out Ethan cheated. After that, it was like she decided it was my fault for not keeping him." Tom's brows furrowed. "She blamed you for his mistake?" "She said I must have done something to make him look elsewhere." My voice shook with old anger. "She said good women don't get left." He looked stunned, angry in that quiet, protective way. "That's not love, Quinn. That's cruelty." "I know," I whispered. "But I kept trying to earn her approval anyway. I thought maybe if I became perfect student, perfect daughter, perfect bride, she'd finally see me." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and raw. Tom didn't interrupt. He just let me speak, and somehow that silence felt healing. We stood there a long time. The music inside drifted out through the open door, muffled and distant. Fireflies blinked across the grass. Then, without warning, I laughed softly, the kind of bitter laugh that comes when you finally stop pretending. You know what's funny? She's probably telling everyone right now how proud she is of him. How he finally found someone better suited. Tom's jaw clenched. You don't need her definition of better. I smiled faintly. I used to think I did. Another moment passed before he spoke again, voice quiet but steady. You know, when I proposed, I didn't ask for anyone's blessing. Not even my parents. I just knew I wanted you. That was enough. That sentence, I just knew I wanted you, settled somewhere deep in my chest. It wasn't loud or grand, but it felt solid. Safe. For the first time all day, I smiled without forcing it. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. Come on. Let's go back in there. You don't have to pretend everything's okay, but don't let them take this day from you. I nodded. You're right. We walked back inside together. The noise and laughter rushed back like a tide. People cheered when they saw us, oblivious to the storm that had just passed through. The rest of the evening moved in fragments. The first dance, the toasts, the laughter that felt both too loud and not enough. But under it all, something had shifted inside me. Every time I caught sight of those empty reserved seats, the ache was still there. But it wasn't the same kind of ache. It wasn't a wound anymore. It was a scar forming. Halfway through the reception, Tom's mom found me near the dessert table. Sweetheart, she said gently, you look tired. Want some water? I smiled. Thank you. I'm okay. Her eyes softened. You're a strong woman, Quinn. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. That simple sentence undid me more than any long speech could have. Because no one from my own family had ever called me strong. Thank you. I whispered, my throat tight. Later, when most guests had left and the hall was quiet again, I went to the corner table where my family's seats still sat empty. The candles had burned low, their flames trembling in the drafts. I picked up one of the little name cards, Mom, and turned it over in my fingers. For a long moment I just stared at it. Then I reached for a napkin, folded it neatly, and placed it over the card. You're done taking space in my life, I whispered under my breath. It wasn't anger that filled me this time. It was clarity, sharp, cold, and strangely peaceful. I walked outside once more, needing air. The stars had come out, glittering faintly above the chapel roof. Somewhere behind me, I heard the faint sound of music fading out, the end of the last song. I pulled out my phone again, not to look at the photo this time but to delete it. My thumb hovered for a second, then pressed down. The screen blinked and just like that it was gone. The weight lifted instantly. But right before I locked my phone, a notification popped up. A message from an unknown number. You weren't supposed to see that photo. Please don't tell Tom. My stomach dropped. The sender's name appeared a second later, Claire. For a moment the world tilted again. I stared at the message, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. She knew. She'd sent that photo or made sure I saw it. But why? My mind spun through possibilities. Guilt? Manipulation? Or something worse? A secret still buried? I turned toward the reception hall, where Tom stood by the doorway talking to his friends, unaware of the quiet explosion happening in my hand. For the first time I wondered, was this photo just a cruel coincidence? Or was it meant to reach me? The stars shimmered above like tiny witnesses, and the night around me grew still. Whatever that photo had revealed, I knew one thing for certain, it wasn't over. Not yet. For a long moment, I just stared at Claire's message. You weren't supposed to see that photo. Please don't tell Tom. The words blurred in front of my eyes, but my pulse was painfully clear, thudding in my ears like a drum. The night air felt heavy now, pressing against my skin. What did she mean, don't tell Tom? My mind raced. Was she trying to protect him? Or herself? Did she think I wouldn't ask questions? I took a shaky breath and looked through the glass doors toward the reception hall. Tom stood near the bar, still laughing with his best man, unaware of the storm brewing just a few yards away. For a second I thought about showing him the message right there, confronting everything all at once. But something in me whispered, not yet. I needed to understand what I was walking into before I shattered both our worlds. So I slipped my phone into my purse, straightened my shoulders, and walked back inside. The night wasn't over, and neither was I. The next morning, sunlight crept through the hotel curtains, soft and golden. Tom was still asleep, his arm draped lazily over the blanket. He looked peaceful, untouched by the chaos that had spun through me all night. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message again. I replayed every word, every photo, every expression from the day before. My wedding day had been beautiful and poisoned. I slipped out of bed quietly, padded into the bathroom, and splashed cold water on my face. My reflection stared back, pale and tired, with a quiet defiance in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Something had changed. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting. I was thinking, deciding. I opened my phone again and stared at Claire's number. My fingers hovered over the screen. My heart wanted to send 1,000 questions, 1,000 accusations, but my mind held me back. Instead, I typed just one word. Why? She didn't reply. Not in an hour. Not all morning. By the time Tom woke up and wrapped his arms around me, I had already decided. If she wasn't going to tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. Back home, after the honeymoon haze settled into quiet routines, the silence between my mother and me grew heavier. She didn't reach out. Neither did I. But Claire did 2 weeks later. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was at work, typing up reports at my small office desk, when her name flashed on my phone. Can we talk? Please. It's not what you think. I stepped outside, my stomach tight. The cold air hit my face as I answered. Claire. Her voice was shaky. Quinn, I didn't mean for you to find out that way. Your mom. She sent that photo in the group chat before I could stop her. My breath caught. You're saying my mom sent it? Yes, she said, almost whispering. She wanted you to know that she was choosing sides. For a moment, I couldn't even respond. The idea that my mother had deliberately made sure I'd see that betrayal, that she wanted me to, felt too cruel to comprehend. Why would she do that? I finally whispered. Claire hesitated. She said she didn't want to pretend anymore. That you'd moved on too fast. That Tom wasn't what she expected for you. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Of course she didn't approve. She never does. Claire exhaled softly. I tried to tell her it was wrong, Quinn. I really did. I didn't even want to be there. Ethan insisted, and she showed up for him. That word, showed up, cut deeper than any insult. For Ethan, she showed up. For me, she sent a text. I swallowed hard. You didn't have to protect her. You could have told me. I know, Claire whispered. I just didn't want to make things worse between you and her. Her voice broke on the last word. I believed her, at least partly. But the damage was already done. I appreciate you calling, I said finally, my voice quiet. But there's nothing left to fix. And I hung up. That night, I sat on the couch with a glass of water, and the TV playing softly in the background. Tom walked in holding 2 mugs of tea and sat beside me. He studied my face for a long moment before asking, You've been different lately. Distant. I stared at the steam rising from the mug. Would you still love me if my family wasn't who you thought they were? He didn't even hesitate. Of course. I looked at him, eyes stinging. Even if they did something unforgivable. Quinn, he said gently, setting the mug down. I married you, not them. Those words settled deep into me, filling spaces I didn't know were empty. He didn't press further. He didn't need to. That was the thing about Tom. He didn't demand explanations. He trusted me to give them when I was ready. And for the first time, I started to believe I deserved that kind of love. A week later, my mother finally called. I saw her name flash on my phone and froze. My pulse quickened, but my fingers didn't move to answer. Then, after the 5th ring, I finally swiped to accept. Hello. Her tone was sharp, almost irritated. Well, you finally picked up. I've been trying to reach you. I took a slow breath. I've been busy. With what? She scoffed. That husband of yours keeping you too occupied to talk to your own mother? The familiar sting of her voice, the way she could twist care into accusation, returned like muscle memory. But this time I didn't shrink. I heard you went to Ethan's engagement, I said quietly. There was a pause. Who told you that? Does it matter? She sighed. I didn't want to hide it. You know how close I've always been with Ethan. He needed family there. He had family there, I said flatly. You. The silence that followed was sharp. Then she said almost dismissively, "Oh, Quinn, you're overreacting again. You've always been too sensitive." Those words, too sensitive, had been her weapon for years. Whenever I cried, whenever I spoke up, whenever I asked for love that wasn't conditional, she'd use it to shut me down. But not this time. "I'm not being sensitive," I said steadily. "I'm being clear. You made your choice, Mom. You showed up for the man who hurt me, and you left me alone on the biggest day of my life." She huffed. "You're twisting things. I told you that you were marrying too soon. You told me not to expect anyone to show." I snapped, my voice cracking. "You didn't just skip the wedding. You warned me not to hope. Who does that to their child?" The other end went quiet. I could almost picture her face. The tight jaw, the pursed lips, the cold eyes that said, "How dare you talk back?" But I didn't back down. "You taught me to always earn your love," I said softly. "But I'm done trying. I'm done bending so far that I disappear just to keep you comfortable." "Quinn," she began, but I cut her off. "I saw the photo. I know everything. And I forgive you. But I'm not letting you hurt me anymore." There was a stunned silence. Then she said, icy and low, "You'll regret this." I took a deep breath. "No, Mom. I'll finally start living." And I hung up. The next few weeks felt strange, like learning how to breathe again after years of holding it in. I cleaned out old boxes, donated the things that reminded me of who I used to be, and filled my house with fresh flowers. Sunflowers, my favorite, the kind my mother never liked because they were too loud. Every day I woke up a little lighter. Every night I slept a little deeper. Tom noticed. One evening while we were cooking dinner together, he smiled and said, "You look different lately. Happier." "I feel like I'm finally becoming myself," I said, smiling back. "Then I'll keep doing whatever helps that happen." It was such a simple promise, but it meant everything. A month later, I passed a small community center near our neighborhood and noticed a sign. Support group. Healing from family estrangement. Something inside me stirred. I walked in the next evening, nervous but determined. There were 7 of us, all different ages and stories, but every person there carried a familiar ache. We shared coffee, stories, laughter through tears. For the first time I said out loud, "I cut ties with my mother." And no one judged me. No one told me I was ungrateful or dramatic. They just nodded. One woman reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You did what you had to do to protect your peace," she said. I smiled through tears. "Yeah, I guess I finally did." That night when I got home, I looked at my reflection again. Not the tired bride from months ago, but a woman standing tall. For the first time, I didn't see guilt or fear looking back. I saw strength. And I realized, healing wasn't about revenge or punishment. It was about release. Letting go of the person I kept trying to be for someone who'd never be proud of me. From that day on, I promised myself something simple. I'd stop chasing approval and start building peace. And in that quiet, ordinary moment, standing barefoot in my living room, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and love that felt real, I finally became the woman I was meant to be. Time has a strange way of softening things you once thought would never stop hurting. It didn't erase the memories. It didn't rewrite what happened. But it changed the edges. The sharp corners that used to cut every time I remembered them became duller, almost manageable. 3 years had passed since that night. The night I hung up on my mother for the last time. In that time, life happened quietly. No grand miracles, no cinematic bursts of redemption. Just small, steady moments like sunlight creeping across a cold room. I started volunteering at the community center, helping new members who came to the support group trembling and unsure. Tom and I bought a small house near the lake, where weekends meant pancakes, music, and the kind of laughter that used to feel foreign to me. Healing didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, like finding parts of myself I'd buried under years of trying to please everyone else. And then one late autumn morning, I found a letter in the mailbox with handwriting I hadn't seen in years. My mother's. The envelope was cream-colored, the kind she always kept for important occasions. There was no return address, but I knew. My hands trembled as I held it. The air suddenly felt heavier, like the past had slipped through the cracks of my peaceful life. Tom saw me standing by the window, frozen. "Who's it from?" he asked gently. I looked up at him. "My mom." He came closer, his expression careful. "Do you want me to stay?" I shook my head slowly. I think I need to open this alone. He nodded, kissed my forehead, and quietly left the room. I sat on the couch for a long time before finally tearing it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No apology, no long explanation. Just a few lines in her neat, deliberate handwriting. Quinn, I heard from your aunt that you're doing well. I'm glad you're happy. Life is short and I hope one day we can talk again. I miss you sometimes. Mom. That was it. No acknowledgement of what she'd done. No I'm sorry. No mention of the years of silence. Just a carefully measured note that sounded more like a formality than a reconciliation. And yet, as I stared at it, I didn't feel the anger I thought I would. Just stillness. She hadn't changed. And maybe she never would. But I had. I folded the letter back into the envelope, set it aside, and went about my day. Cooking dinner, answering emails, laughing with Tom as if the ghost of my mother's voice hadn't just slipped back into my world. But that night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't sleep. Her words kept circling in my mind. I hope one day we can talk again. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. A window cracked open, just enough for a little air to pass through. Over the next few weeks, I found myself revisiting memories I'd long put away. The good ones. Her humming while brushing my hair before school. The way she'd line up my crayons in color order because she said chaos made her nervous. Her laughter the night we got caught in the rain running barefoot to the car. It hurt to remember those things because they reminded me that love had existed once, imperfect, conditional, but real in its own way. I realized then that I didn't miss her control or her approval. I missed the version of her I used to believe in. The mother I wanted her to be. And maybe, in her own way, she missed the version of me that never questioned her. We had both outgrown the story we were supposed to play in each other's lives. And maybe that was the quiet tragedy neither of us knew how to name. A year passed before I wrote back. It wasn't a decision I made one morning over coffee. It was something that built slowly. A whisper that grew louder with time. Every time I saw someone at the community center take a brave step forward, calling a parent, forgiving someone, or even just saying goodbye properly, something in me shifted. One evening after a long day, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop and stared at a blank email screen. Her old address was still saved under Mom. I hadn't deleted it. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I didn't know where to start. How do you speak to a ghost who's still alive? Finally, I typed, "Hi Mom. I got your letter a while ago. I wasn't sure if I'd ever respond, but I think enough time has passed for me to say what I need to." I paused, staring at the blinking cursor. The rest came in small, careful bursts. I'm doing well. Life is peaceful. I have a home I love and people who make me feel safe. I hope you're healthy and content too. I've spent a lot of time being angry, but I don't want to carry that anymore. You did what you thought was right at the time, even if it broke me. I don't need an apology now. I just want peace for both of us. You don't have to reply. I just wanted you to know I'm okay. And that I hope in your own way you are too. Quinn. I reread it twice, once as a daughter, once as the woman I had become. It didn't sound bitter. It didn't sound weak. It sounded like closure. With a quiet breath I hit send. And in that single click, years of tension uncoiled from my chest. Days passed. Then weeks. No reply came. And strangely, that didn't hurt the way I thought it might. Because this time, silence didn't mean rejection. It meant acceptance, my own. I didn't need her response to validate my healing. I had already written the ending I needed. But life, as always, has its quiet surprises. One snowy evening in December, as Tom and I were decorating the tree, my phone buzzed with an email notification. From her. For a long second I couldn't breathe. Tom glanced over, curious. "Everything okay?" I nodded slowly. "It's my mom." He squeezed my shoulder. "Read it when you're ready." I opened it, heart hammering. "Quinn, I wasn't sure you'd ever write back. I know my letter was too little, too late. I just didn't know how to reach you without making things worse. I've been seeing someone, a counselor. She says I should take responsibility for how I treated you. I'm still learning how to do that without sounding defensive. You were always stronger than I gave you credit for. I see that now. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. No pressure. I just wanted you to know I'm trying. Love, Mom." My hands trembled slightly as I finished reading. The words weren't perfect. They weren't everything I'd once longed for. But they were human. For the first time in years, I felt something other than pain when I thought of her, something closer to compassion. A year later, on a calm Sunday morning, Tom and I drove to the lake for a walk. The air smelled like pine and coffee. Birds dipped low across the water, their wings glinting in the sunlight. We sat on a bench, sipping hot chocolate from paper cups. Tom looked over at me. "You seem far away." "Just thinking," I said, smiling faintly, "about how different things feel now." He nodded. "You've come a long way." "Yeah," I whispered. "I guess I finally stopped trying to fix the past." He reached for my hand. "You didn't fix it. You transformed it." I laughed softly. "Maybe." But later, as we walked back toward the car, I took out my phone and scrolled through my messages. My last one to her sat there at the top. "Take care of yourself." And beneath it, a new one I hadn't noticed before. "You too, sweetheart." It was simple, but it made my eyes sting. Because for all the years I'd waited to hear something kind from her, it finally came. Not in the form of an apology, not as a rewrite of our story, but as something small and honest. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, took Tom's hand and walked on. The sun broke through the clouds, warm against my face. And in that moment I realized that the message I sent years later wasn't just to her. It was to myself. A promise that no matter what anyone else did or didn't give me, I'd always choose peace over pain. And for the first time, that promise felt real.